Macron announces France will recognize Palestinian state at UN in September. In a bold and unexpected move, French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that France will recognize a Palestinian state at the United Nations General Assembly in September. This decision is a significant shift in the international landscape and could have far-reaching implications for the Middle East. The announcement comes as the humanitarian crisis in Gaza continues to escalate, with desperate families facing starvation and death. In a heart-wrenching incident, a Gaza family mourned the loss of their 13-year-old son, who was killed while waiting in line for food. The tragedy underscores the urgent need for a resolution to the ongoing conflict. But here's where it gets controversial. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has strongly condemned Macron's decision, calling it a reward for terror. His defense minister described it as a disgrace and a surrender to terror. Meanwhile, Palestinian officials and humanitarian organizations have praised the move, seeing it as a step towards justice and peace. The situation in Gaza is dire. The UN has warned that starving Gazans are beginning to resemble walking corpses, with dozens of people dying from malnutrition. Israel has denied creating a famine, accusing Hamas of engineering food shortages. However, aid agencies and human rights organizations have repeatedly raised the alarm, emphasizing that the crisis is man-made and preventable. And this is the part most people miss. The crisis extends beyond the immediate suffering of civilians. It has the potential to destabilize the entire region, affecting millions of lives and potentially leading to further violence. The international community is under increasing pressure to take decisive action. In a related development, Israel has recalled its negotiators from ceasefire talks, following Hamas's response to the latest proposal. An Israeli source told CNN that this move does not indicate a crisis in the talks. But the US team in Qatar is also heading back home. This can signal a setback in efforts to reach a peaceful resolution. Other countries are also reacting to France's decision. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez commended France's commitment, while Saudi Arabia described it as a historic decision that supports the Palestinian people's right to self-determination. Jordan expressed hope that the announcement will garner international support for the two-state solution. However, the move has sparked intense debate within Israel. Israeli Minister of Heritage Amichai Eliyahu claimed in a radio interview that there is no hunger in Gaza and that the government is racing to have Gaza wiped out. These remarks were strongly condemned by other Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, who said they do not reflect the government's policy. The World Health Organization's chief has stated that Palestinians in Gaza are suffering from man-made mass starvation due to the aid blockade. Aid agencies have reported that thousands of children are malnourished and many are dying from preventable illnesses. The crisis is deepening and the need for immediate action is more urgent than ever. What do you think about France's decision to recognize a Palestinian state? Is it a step towards peace or could it exacerbate the conflict? Share your thoughts in the comments below. France to recognize Palestinian state in September. What you need to know. In a bold move that could reshape Middle Eastern politics, France is set to officially recognize the State of Palestine this September. President Emmanuel Macron made this significant announcement on his social media platform X, stating that the formal recognition will take place during the UN General Assembly session in New York. This decision comes at a critical time as the conflict in Gaza continues to escalate with devastating consequences for civilians. Macron emphasized the urgent need for peace, calling for an immediate ceasefire, the release of all hostages, and substantial humanitarian aid for the people of Gaza. Peace is possible, he asserted, highlighting the necessity of ending the war and rescuing the civilian population. The reaction to Macron's announcement has been mixed. Palestinian officials have praised the decision, viewing it as a step toward justice and self-determination for the Palestinian people. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has strongly criticized the move, arguing that it rewards terror in the aftermath of the October 7, 2023 attack by Hamas in Israel. Netanyahu's stance reflects a deep-seated controversy. Does recognizing Palestine pave the way for peace, or does it embolden those who seek to destabilize the region? In his post, Macron reaffirmed France's long-standing commitment to a just and lasting peace in the Middle East. He outlined a multi-step approach, including the demilitarization of Hamas, the reconstruction of Gaza, and the establishment of a viable Palestinian state. Macron stressed that this state must contribute to regional security by fully recognizing Israel and ensuring its own demilitarization. There is no alternative, he declared, underscoring the urgency of the situation. Macron also sent a letter to Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, confirming France's decision. Abbas's deputy, Hussein al-Sheikh, welcomed the move, stating that it aligns with international law and supports the Palestinian people's right to self-determination and an independent state. On the other hand, Netanyahu condemned the decision, arguing that a Palestinian state under current conditions would pose a direct threat to Israel's existence. The Palestinians do not seek a state alongside Israel, they seek a state instead of Israel, he claimed, sparking further debate. Hamas, meanwhile, described France's decision as a positive step and called on other countries to follow suit. The recognition of Palestine is already supported by over 140 of the 193 UN member states, including several European countries like Spain and Ireland. However, key allies of Israel, such as the United States and the United Kingdom, have not yet recognized a Palestinian state. UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has called for an emergency meeting with French and German leaders to address the crisis. Starmer emphasized that statehood is an inalienable right of the Palestinian people, and that a ceasefire is essential to achieving a two-state solution. Saudi Arabia's foreign ministry also praised France's decision, reaffirming the international consensus on the Palestinian people's right to self-determination. The situation in Gaza remains dire. Since the Israeli military's response to the October 7th attack, which killed approximately 1,200 people and resulted in 251 hostages, the death toll in Gaza has risen to at least 59,106, according to the territory's health ministry. Much of Gaza has been reduced to rubble, and humanitarian organizations have warned of mass starvation, particularly among children. The UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency, UNRWA, reported that 1 in 5 children in Gaza City is now malnourished, with cases increasing daily. But here's where it gets controversial. Israel has repeatedly denied that there is a siege in Gaza, instead blaming Hamas for any instances of malnutrition. This raises a critical question: who is truly responsible for the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and what role do international actors play in resolving it? As the world watches, the recognition of Palestine by France could mark a turning point in the Middle East conflict. But will it lead to peace, or will it further inflame tensions? What do you think? Is this the right move, or a misstep that could backfire? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let the discussion begin.
Macron's bold move, France to recognize Palestinian state. In a bold move that has sent shockwaves through the international community, French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that France will recognize the State of Palestine at the United Nations General Assembly in September. This decision, aimed at fostering peace in the Middle East, has infuriated Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who sees it as a capitulation to terrorism. But here's where it gets controversial. Macron's move could potentially shift the dynamics of the region, as France becomes the first major Western country to take this step, potentially inspiring others to follow suit. Macron's announcement, made on a significant day, was accompanied by a letter to Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, confirming France's intention to push for Palestinian recognition and to encourage other partners to do the same. This strategic move is part of a broader effort to breathe life into the two-state solution, despite mounting pressure against it. The recognition of Palestine by France, home to Europe's largest Jewish and Muslim communities, is a significant development. It could provide a much-needed boost to the movement for Palestinian statehood, which has so far been led by smaller nations more critical of Israel. However, this decision has not been without its critics. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has labeled it a disgrace and a surrender to terrorism, warning that Israel will not allow the establishment of a Palestinian entity that could harm its security or threaten its existence. In a diplomatic cable sent in June, the United States expressed its opposition to any unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state, suggesting that such actions could run counter to US foreign policy interests and lead to consequences. The White House has yet to comment on Macron's announcement, leaving the international community in suspense over Washington's response. Macron's decision to recognize Palestine has been months in the making, driven by a desire to keep a two-state solution alive. French officials had initially considered the move ahead of a United Nations conference, co-hosted by France and Saudi Arabia, which was planned to outline a roadmap for a Palestinian state while ensuring Israel's security. However, the conference was postponed due to US pressure and the onset of the Israel-Iran air war, which closed regional airspace and made it difficult for representatives of some Arab states to attend. The conference has since been rescheduled and downgraded to a ministerial event, with a second event planned for heads of state and government on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in September. The decision to announce the recognition ahead of the conference was intended to provide the French team at the United Nations with a framework to work with other countries considering similar recognition or hesitant to do so. Macron has faced resistance from allies like Britain and Canada, with some 40 foreign ministers expected to be in New York next week. Israeli officials have been lobbying tirelessly to prevent what they see as a nuclear bomb for bilateral relations, warning France of potential consequences ranging from reduced intelligence sharing to complications for Paris's regional initiatives, and even hinting at possible annexation of parts of the West Bank. The Palestinian Authority's Vice President, Hussein al-Sheikh, expressed gratitude to France, stating that Macron's decision reflects France's commitment to international law and its support for the Palestinian people's rights to self-determination and the establishment of our independent state. This move by France has not only sparked controversy, but also opened the door for a renewed push for peace in the Middle East, a region that has seen far too much conflict and suffering. And this is the part most people miss. While Macron's decision may have angered Netanyahu, it also presents an opportunity for dialogue and a potential path forward in the quest for a lasting peace in the region.